For almost 3 years, my wife Natalie told me the distance between us was temporary. She said it was the travel, the early flights, the late meetings, the pressure of building a future for us. I can still see her standing by the bed, carefully folding her tailored jackets into a suitcase, looking up at me with those steady eyes and saying, "I'm doing this for us." When you love someone, you want to believe them. Believing is easier than imagining they're lying. On the surface, she never slipped. She called before every flight, texted the moment she landed, asked if I had eaten, reminded me to sleep. If marriage had a checklist, she was checking every box. And yet, every time she came home, something felt missing. It was subtle at first, a colder hug, a distracted smile, conversations that felt like summaries instead of stories. It was as if each trip took a small piece of us with it, and that piece never came back. Friends would tell me how lucky I was. "She's successful, driven, you've got it made." I'd smile, nod, play the role. But inside, I felt like a guest in my own marriage. Looking back, the signs were there. I just confused consistency with honesty. I mistook routine for loyalty, and that mistake cost me more than I knew. The truth didn't explode into my life. It slipped in quietly. One morning, Natalie left early for the airport and forgot her tablet on the kitchen counter. Around noon, it lit up with a notification. I wasn't snooping, I wasn't suspicious, but the message preview appeared on the locked screen. "Room 1812 is ready, same place as always. Can't wait to see you." My stomach tightened. I stared at the screen, waiting for another explanation to magically appear. Instead, another message came in, this one from her. "I'll tell my husband the meetings ran late again. He doesn't question the trips anymore." In that moment, something inside me went very still. More messages followed. Jokes about weekends together, expensive dinners charged to the company, comments about how easy it had become to lie. Every sentence erased a memory I once thought was real. I didn't call her, I didn't yell, I didn't break anything. I documented everything. I photographed the messages, I downloaded financial records, I went through months of bank statements. Patterns began to form, luxury hotels in cities without conferences, high-end restaurants on busy work weekends. And then I found the detail that made it all make sense. The expense reports were approved by her boss, the same man from the messages. My hands weren't shaking because I was confused. They were shaking because I finally understood how long this had been happening. That afternoon, I called my attorney, David. I expected anger. Instead, he gave me calm. "The strongest move you can make," he said, "isn't the loudest one. It's the one that can't be undone." So I stopped thinking like a betrayed husband and started thinking like a man rebuilding his life. The following Monday, Natalie left for another important meeting. She kissed my cheek, told me to water the plants, promised to bring chocolates from the hotel gift shop. I smiled, held the door open, wished her a safe flight. When her taxi disappeared, the house felt strangely peaceful. By noon, movers were carrying my belongings into a new apartment across town. With David's help, finances were separated, documents secured, my future quietly reclaimed. The wedding photos were the last thing I packed. I held one for a moment longer than I expected. 2 smiling people who believed in forever. Then I placed it in the box and sealed it. That evening, I stood in the empty living room. No shouting, no dramatic speeches, just silence, and a plan already in motion. I left one handwritten note on the kitchen counter. Before I walked out, my phone rang. A woman named Claire from Natalie's company, calm, professional. She explained an internal audit had uncovered questionable expense reports tied to executive travel. They were verifying information before taking action. I answered only what I was legally advised to answer. Nothing more. Before hanging up, she said quietly, "Thank you for your honesty. You'll likely be hearing from us again." I locked the front door, left the keys for David, and drove away without looking back. Natalie landed late that night. She expected lights on, familiar comfort, predictability. Instead, she found darkness, an empty garage, a house that echoed when she walked through it. My books were gone, the photos gone. Even the coffee mug she gave me on our honeymoon had vanished. On the counter sat one white envelope. Inside, a single sentence. You spent years asking another man for emotional support. Now it's time to learn how to support yourself. Seconds later, her phone began to explode with notifications. Missed calls from the office, urgent emails, a voicemail requesting she contact HR before returning to work. For the first time, the consequences weren't coming from me. They were coming from the life she built on deception. Over the following weeks, the truth unraveled quickly. The company investigated. Her boss faced serious consequences. Employees were questioned. The luxury trips were no longer hidden behind the word business. As for us, David handled the divorce with quiet precision. Facts, documentation, no theatrics. Natalie called, texted, long apologies, explanations about loneliness and stress, requests for one last conversation. I never responded. There was nothing left to discuss. The woman I loved had faded long before I packed that moving truck. Here's what no one tells you about betrayal. Peace doesn't arrive the moment the liar is exposed. It arrives the day you stop waiting for an apology to repair what they chose to destroy. Nearly a year later, I walked past a small cafe and caught my reflection in the window. For the first time in years, I didn't look exhausted. I looked hopeful. My new apartment is smaller, my life is less predictable, but it is honest, every corner of it. I rebuilt slowly, one decision at a time, no secrets, no pretending. And when I look back, I realize the most powerful part of this story wasn't the empty house or the note on the counter. It was this. I refused to let her choices define my future. Walking away wasn't weakness. It was clarity. Sometimes strength isn't about fighting for a marriage at all costs. Sometimes it's about understanding your worth deeply enough to leave when that worth is no longer recognized. Natalie once said she needed hotel rooms and late nights for support. I discovered something better. Real strength is quiet. It's packing your peace before you pack your anger. It's choosing dignity over drama. And it's having the courage to rebuild a life where trust is no longer a question, but a foundation.